I've learnt more about Chris's work being an artist, but also a commercial artist, a concept artist, and some of the influence that he's had in his career based from Guernsey. What interests me most about learning what I have about Chris's work is finding out that he was born in Guernsey. When he was a young man in Guernsey, the bunkers that we all know from World War II were pretty fresh in the landscape, and Chris used to play in amongst those and the quarries, and these have hugely inspired his career. And not only that, but the landscapes, the fish, the sea, the rocks, you can see this all appearing in his work. And Chris also, like many of the fine artists that we've invited to the island, talks about the exceptional light here in Guernsey and how this inspired him. And it strikes me that there's these real parallels of the light here, but also the landscape in Guernsey. And that's gone on to shape the sci-fi world that most of us know. And I hadn't realized, when you look at some of those emblems in the films that Chris has been concept artist for, if you don't know, these are from the early Superman, from Flash Gordon, Stanley Kubrick's AI, Ridley Scott, you worked with on Alien, Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, the list goes on, and countless hundreds of book illustrations as well, from the 60s, 70s onward. Chris has had a glittering career, and he's here with us this evening, and so if you get a chance to have a word with him and talk about his career, if you're a sci-fi person, I really recommend you spend a few minutes to ask Chris some questions. Not only is this exhibition, inspiring us, inviting you to have a closer look at his work, but over the summer we're going to be showing those films once a week. Keep an eye on our Facebook for the dates, but we're going to be showing the films that Chris's concept work has inspired on a weekly basis in the gallery here, so you can come and watch the film in amongst the artworks. I think that'll be a wonderful way to enjoy them. And we're also, as a sci-fi summer, we're running our entire holiday club over the summer months, inspired by Chris's work again. So the children coming in for the holiday clubs are going to be looking at Chris's work, looking at space and sci-fi and the landscapes, the fish, the bunkers, and then really creating their own works in response. So I love the fact that we're handing that baton on to the next generation as well with Chris's work. Now, I think I'm going to leave it there and keep it short and sweet. I think Chris's work speaks for itself. Please enjoy. I'm going to hand the microphone to His Excellency to say a few words as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm assuming that if you are here, you are a fan of Chris's work. I unashamedly am. I first, in a sense, touched base with Chris probably when I was about 15. If you were growing up, I should say, I'm about 15. He is a master actually of several forms of art, but if you were 15 and growing up in Dublin, the fact remains that the sci-fi bit was the most accessible of all of it. And in those days, these days, book covers are an art form in themselves, and people earn a great deal of money doing them. When Chris was doing book covers, he would be rung up and asked for 100 paintings by next Wednesday to illustrate all sorts of books. The paintings weren't about the book themselves necessarily, they just needed some covers, and he was the man to do them. But for me, then, and ever since then, these were books that took you places. Voyager 1 went into interstellar space in 2012. But if you were reading this 45-year-old copy of Foundation, you were already in interstellar space. He took you to places that in a sense our imagination had not yet taken us. And they're not just pictures. The other thing I think he did so brilliantly, and I'm not the first person to say this, was the scale of what he did. Up until that point, spaceships were things that people went in. In his hands, they were things that moved whole populations. He took scale and changed it in the way in which he did his drawings. And I am absolutely certain, in that alone, he influenced many of the great science fiction writers that came after his work came out such as Ian M. Banks, whose scale is part of what makes his book so special. If you're a sci-fi fan, E. Doc Smith, Isaac Asimov, Ben Bova, Harry Harrison, Philip K. Dick, we've already talked about the movies that he was directly involved in, and if you look at some of his work, I'm absolutely sure you will also see the Death Star and the work that influenced Star Wars and all of the work that came after that. And it's not just about them. His work continues to evolve. We've already talked about the place that Guernsey has in his work, which not only are wonderful pictures, but I dare to think are also a message to us that no island is an island, that anywhere can be impacted by things from outer space, or possibly from elsewhere in the world. And he's redesigning much of the work that he did in his early days, much like Taylor Swift, if you can imagine it, who's working on her earlier albums. He's working on some of his earlier covers, which of course, given the way in which they were produced in these days, have not necessarily survived contact with time. When I came here, I didn't realise that he was a Guernsey man who lived here, but somehow we found our way together. I invited him over for a quick cup of coffee. 2.5 hours later, I had to throw myself out. And the thing that I remember most about that time, apart from the enormous fun that it was that this man had never been to Government House. He is world famous. He is an artist that has shaped and influenced lives, and I'm absolutely certain that he is an artist of consequence whose work will be referenced for many years to come. It's been a pleasure to get to know him. I think this is a delight to see his work on show in this place, and I'm honoured to be able to call him my friend.
I would like to thank the governor for coming here to open this exhibition. He has made a huge impact in my life. I have now twice been up there to have a very pleasant evening with him. He is totally fascinating. I went away each time charged with ideas, and for him to come down here and open this exhibition with the comments that he's made means so very much to me, and I will cherish this moment for many years. I really will. And secondly, I would like to thank the amazing group here at this gallery. It's one of the most impressive galleries I've ever exhibited in, and the dedication is what do I say? And I would particularly like to thank Jock, who has collated the pictures, and he's brought out things in them. I mean, even tonight, when he was speaking, there's things I hadn't noticed in the pictures, and he sat in my house drawing out bits of artwork and putting them together. So a profound thank you to Jock and to Catherine, who has had to somehow get all the descriptions correct on the paintings and things like that. And finally, I will risk taking your... I did have a proper little script prepared, but I'm going to diverge. Many, many years ago, I helped create Alien. I was shut away in a washroom on the back lot of 20th Century Fox with Dan O'Bannon, its writer and creator, and the other artist, Ron Cobb, and we, the three of us, were putting together this little film, Alien. And we were given a director called Walter Hill, who was busy smashing up cars in a film called Driver, and they finally persuaded Walter to come around and see what we were doing. The great man walked in, he walked around the room, as you have here, he said, "A room full of spaceships," and walked out. So I do hope you will find enough to look at here, more so than Walter Hill. Thank you very much. And I will hand you back to John.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Your Excellency. A few more thank yous, but before I do do so, I just want to point to a couple of things. That artwork that Chris talked about producing in the studios at Alien, there were only 2 prints made of it. And one of them is on the wall through here, the piece on the right through there. It's a special piece. And also Chris's work on Guardians of the Galaxy. He tells me when he arrived, and it's in the narrative film, if you haven't seen it yet, when he arrived at the studios, he was surrounded by whiz kids with computers, and the art director walked up to him to ask where his computer was and where his designs were, and he explained, I don't use computers, I draw. And I believe you had quite a large room and no drawings in your pocket.
Absolutely.
So he sat down with some small pieces of card and knocked out about 16 drawings in a day and turned them into a ring binder file to present to the art director, which was the start of Guardians of the Galaxy. And again, as you'll see through this way on the wall are those original cards that started the Guardians journey. So if there's any memorabilia and Guardians fans or Aliens fans out there, there's some really interesting pieces here as well that carry some provenance. And further, one last bit on that. Behind David over there, towards the bar, there are some portfolio catalogues of Chris's work. And Chris has very kindly offered to put signed copies of those available at £50. David's holding it up for you now. And if you're willing to part with £200, he's going to do a unique drawing in it for you. So he'll do you a bespoke drawing. So if you're interested in those, please give us a shout and we can get Chris drawing again. On that point, actually, I think it's fair to say over the last couple of months, since we first met you, you've been like a man on a mission when we told you the exhibition we wanted to put together.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Working every which way, every
Yes.
hour, putting
Yes.
a lot of work together.
Yes.
It's been wonderful to see the colour come back into Chris's cheeks and the amount of work he's been producing.
It's kept Alzheimer's at bay.
So to finish with a couple of thank yous from me, these exhibitions don't happen without the help and support of our team and a number of suppliers, and it's only fair to say a couple of thank yous. The first one has to go to Glenn at Guernsey Picture Framers, who's really pulled out the stops on this one. I think it's fair to say, Chris, we were delivering work up till past the last minute. I think it was about 20 past the last minute.
Yes.
Glenn's been working like a machine, and he's also lent quite heavily on Jamie at the edge and Barney down the road here to pull this one out. They've done such a spectacular job. I think there's now a Foss effect frame, isn't there, with the yellow inset detail. So thank you to Glenn and to Jamie at the edge. Thank you to Warren at Spike, who only started filming with Chris yesterday and has turned around the narrative film. Always a great partner with us. Thank you to JR Photography, still in front of me. Always does a great job in capturing the work we do. Thank you to Dowding, who's helped us with the graphics and the prints. Again, they do an amazing job. And not to forget today, James, wherever you are, for the food and the drink. Thank you to Cooked for sorting that out. And my final thanks, as ever, goes to the team that support me in putting these together, to David, to Caroline, to Mike, to Ava, to Lucy, Sasha there, supporting the mic for me today. I hope I haven't missed anyone. We've got a bigger team than we used to have. But thank you to the whole team. Thank you to all for coming. Please have a wonderful evening. Thank you.